that for some reason. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad that I'm here now. Hopefully, I didn't miss too much.
No, we were actually just planning the next drop tomorrow without you. I believe we've cut you out of the deal.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, everyone's heard it here first.
yeah, man. Happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
This has been Happy New Year. 2022 is already heating up in so many ways. So happy to get you guys on board for a Spaces before it really gets nuts. We've also got Jake joining us. Hello, hello. He's the leader of Metaverse HQ.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Great to be here. Thank you, Braindrops team, all the artists for coming up. I'm pretty pumped to see what you guys are working on. What's next?
Awesome. Thanks for having us. We're really stoked to be here. Hopefully, we got a good crew. I put the word out. I know. I think most people should be able to join at least today. It's cool that Davey's on with us. Her drop is tomorrow, so we're super excited getting all the metadata ready for that. And yeah, I mean, just a lot going on. We announced yesterday. We announced to everybody that if they hold the first 3 projects, so on day 1 we dropped 3 projects: Brain Loops, Podgans, and Genesis. And so for people who hold at least one piece from each of those, we'll be able to participate in a pre-mint. So at noon EST tomorrow, the pre-mint will go live, and then it'll last for about 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the public. And the pre-minters, they'll be able to get one piece each.
That is some fantastic alpha. Thank you for sharing that, Justin. I did not know. I will be a vigilant co-host. I will not be front-running all of you, so I will give everyone here time. If you're interested in pre-minting for tomorrow's Braindrops drop, go and scoop one of the 3 Genesis, or the first collections, right?
Yeah.
Day 1 collection.
The first 3, yeah. It's a little confusing. Genesis is Claire's, the title of her collection. So it would be Genesis, Brain Loops, and Podgans. You need to hold all 3 of those. And then if you do, and that'll be up until minting time. So we're not taking a snapshot or anything. The contract will just check, see if you're eligible, and then it'll pass you through to do a pre-mint. And then after you do the pre-mint, once it's opened up to the public, those people will still be able to participate in the public mint.
Got it. Good to know. Poop, if you could throw up, perhaps we can pin a Braindrops post about that intel. I think that's good alpha for people to know. And Justin, glad to have you and the amazing array of artists that you've brought on board. Braindrops, a little bit from us. From our end at Metaverse HQ, we are a lovely, humble NFT community, gated with an NFT of 1,500 keys. We have 1,300 members, and how I found out about Braindrops, unfortunately, was not from perusing the website and having my time to click mint and sip my coffee. All of our members were posting all the cool shit that they had just minted, and I had totally missed the boat. So I'd love, in your words, for you to tell everyone, first explain, what is Braindrops, what is your vision for it, and how did it all begin? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. So the idea kind of started to take shape a little over a year ago. So around, I think on November 27th, Art Blocks came out. I had known Snowfro from the punk community and was super interested in really anything back in those days that anybody in the CryptoPunk community was working on. It was such a small community that was pretty manageable. It wasn't too noisy, so it was just oh, this is cool. So joined the Discord over there, checking out what they were doing, and it got me super fascinated in the idea of generative art, in general, and participated in the pre-minting, participated in the minting on day 1, and then continued. Chromie Squiggles actually took months to sell out. There's 10,000 of them, and at the time it seemed like a ton of pieces, but it was just fun and exciting to see all the different types and obviously as the platform grew, it became interesting from a collector's point of view, because for me, I had always kind of been thinking in terms of scarcity, and really minting on art blocks was cool because it was like you were able to get a one of one piece, but it's also part of like this bigger collection, and so there's a cohesion to it, but everyone still has the ability to have their own unique piece. So it's different from like, an edition of say 10 or 100 pieces where they're all the same. And so that intrigued me, and it felt like something that was unique to the generative art category, and also just felt like, there's so much cool stuff. There's so much cool art that can be created from these algorithms and from just the way that generative art is made, that it was a shame that it would just be curated down. They could have all these amazing pieces, and then it would just be curated down to like maybe like one or two pieces for the artist to sell. And at the same time, it's kind of hard for an artist to make money or make a living doing this. It was just like a passion project. So continue to collect, still collect art blocks. I'm a huge fan of Snow Froze. Everything that they do over there has been a big inspiration for what we're doing with Braindrops. It's just that Braindrops is more focused on the AI art, AI generative side. So like the idea kind of took shape in thinking about other types of artists who do generative work. It's not necessarily writing an algorithm and then having it play out, but in this case, it's like AI collaborative work, and there's kind of like three different levels, and you can see the three different levels representative in our first three drops. So you have Gene, who's also a co-founder, Gene Kogan, and so he's like super technical, has been around in the AI scene for a really long time, was around in 2014, 2015, when GAN's generative adversarial networks were really first coming out to be used to create AI art, or just in general to come out. And then it was him and then I think one other person in the academic space that kind of started to play around with it in a artistic way. And so he really represents, that heavy technical side. And then we have Pindar with his Podgans. Gene's project is called Brain Loops, and that was the first project on the platform. Even though they're all released the same day, those first three. The second would be Podgans, which is like not quite as technical as Gene, but also like super unique and interesting in the fact that Pindar was actually created and used his own data to do all the training. So there's these little creatures that all have this very like cohesive, like you can tell when you're looking at any of the pieces from the collection, oh, this is a Podgan, right? And then third, we had Claire, who has really kind of coined, I'm pretty sure she coined the phrase that taste is the new skill. And so like she's coming from a less technical background and more passion about art history, about really, really like just being obsessive and really second to pretty much anyone when it comes to curation and narrative storytelling. And I think obviously it's really resonated with people. I mean, our collection, I don't know what the floor is today, but it's like, I think it might be like 4 ETH or something crazy. And so it's just really been awesome to see, all the projects be super well received. We started on November 15th, so it's been not quite 2 months so far. And like I said, we had those first three drops on day one. And then we've had one other drop that was a little less than a month ago. And they have gone very quickly. The last drop actually sold out in like pretty much like 1 second. And so we wanted to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and maybe give some options for not only this next upcoming drop, but maybe like future drops in the way that we've designed a new contract that gives us a little flexibility in trying to do our best to make it a little easier for people who aren't as technically skilled in like using bots and stuff to be able to participate in minting. And so obviously took away the ability for people to nest, which would be, so we limited it to 1 mint per transaction. But there's there's a technical way that some people, some smart other developers figured out how to nest multiple transactions within one, and so they minted several inside of one transaction. So we've taken measures to prevent that for this upcoming drop tomorrow. And then also we did what I was just talking about, which was allowing the day one full set holders to pre-mint. And then there's some other stuff that we can do in the future too. We're just kind of going to feel things out and see how things go. Obviously, we want to keep our momentum. I think it's good to have. It's a good problem to have. People are. There's no way to please everybody. Some people are going to be upset when there's more people that want a piece than are available. There's always going to be people that that won't be happy. But I think that if we just focus on doing the best we can and continuing to iterate and make the platform good and put out the best art that we can, it's really, I think, the best we can do, and the proofs, in the numbers. I think things have done well, and we try to keep the price point at a fair price, which allows for growth in the secondary market. So the way we kind of see things going, like long term, is artists and collectors growing together. So this gives a good, because of generative art and being able to have so many pieces, it really gives a good opportunity for artists to get a whole bunch of fans at one time, and then they can all grow together in the space. And I really feel like that's kind of how Braindrops has how Art Blocks has gone. And so I really wanted to try to mirror that in this other AI gen space. And so far, it's great. We have about 3,000 pieces in the collection, and then somewhere around half of that is collectors. I think about 1,200 collectors. So it's, for the relatively small number of pieces that we have so far, I think distribution is pretty good. But yeah, we can talk more about like where we see things going in the future. But that's kind of how we've gotten to where we've gotten. So I reached out to Pindar and Claire. I had known them for a while, and then was introduced to Gene, and Gene has just really been somebody that's been awesome to be able to lean on because of all of his knowledge in the AI space and clout within the AI community. And so it's really just been a great team. And I'd also have to include Punk 2513. He kind of stays in the background because he's just busy coding, but he's an amazing developer, and he's done all the Solidity for us. He also does all the front end and back end work for the website. It's just like, it's a good fit. It's a good team. And the artists that we bring on, we really feel like they're part of the team too. And then in making sure that they fit in with the general vibe. So far, so good in that sense.
That's amazing. Thank you for running that all down. I think that's a lot to sort of take in. I think where I want to start here is, your drops have been so highly coveted because not only is the art incredible, the artists that you are bringing on have a sense of flair, a sense of direction. You just said it best, right? It's not like you're increasing mint cost to meet floor price. You're making it sort of extremely fair. If you want it, it's at a reasonable price point. And yeah, I really appreciate that. And thank you for the context, by the way. I didn't know Squiggles, the Chromie Squigs, took that long to sell out, right? Like, I guess you're an OG compared to me. Like, I think my first drop that I experienced was like the Bored Apes. So that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. I think too, to even go down further, right? Like, you mentioned Art Blocks, and Art Blocks, for those of you that don't know, I know everyone at Metaverse HQ knows Art Blocks very well. Art Blocks, I have a lot of interesting thoughts about art blocks. I think they sort of fit into the space much like Dapper Labs with NBA Top Shot. They had an awesome product or series of products, a process where they highlighted artists, kept the supply, um, relative to the demand, kept the price points relative, and some things got lost in translation. But what I love about what you're doing with Brain Drops, Justin, is that you have a really nice sense of the market. Obviously, you want every single drop to sell out, and they have been flying off the shelves. You said it yourself. That's really awesome to see because that is not happening on art blocks these days. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If you were to go to the website right now, and that's just public information. I think too, if you're listening and if you're just like me and you were on the Brain Drops website for one of their previous drops so far, and I want to get into the latest drop with Devi, by the way, who I see as a Rowan University graduate. Shout out. You have to understand exactly like what's happening, right? So when you say that people found a way to mint more than they should have, that's funny because it's actually that's like Q blocking, right? So that's a strategy that a lot of NFT traders use, where you'll mint off contract instead of off the website. And for me, my new mistake was trying to mint off the website, much like unfortunately Claire's family as well. So I feel your pain there, Claire. I want to start off by maybe we could start there, Justin. Is you brought up art blocks. What do you think they did so well, and how do you think you've adapted their model to serve Brain Drops, both on the artist side as well as the collecting, investment side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first, I would just like to say I have just the most respect possible for Snowfro. I think Eric has spearheaded so many things, so it's very easy for, in hindsight, to second guess decisions that have been made, and he's being pulled in lots of directions, and it's a difficult position to be in for him. Obviously it's amazing for him. It's a lot of great success, but then at the same time, there's people with all kinds of motivations, and they're all pulling him in different directions, and so it's not necessarily an enviable position. And so,
Sorry to
luckily for me, did I cut off?
No, I'm sorry to cut you off. Just for people listening, who is it that you're referring to?
Snowfro Eric Calderon is the founder of Artblocks.
Okay, cool.
And so, and I've known of Eric for a long time. I was actually around in the early punk days. Was lucky enough to find out. I've been working on art in VR in 2015, 2016, and then obviously mid 2017 when CryptoPunks came out. It just immediately clicked for me how I'd already been interested in blockchain, but I hadn't it just hadn't all clicked for me together, how everything could kind of work together. At the time, I'd been thinking about preserving art inside of just traditional art, like sculptures and paintings, in a virtual environment. But I hadn't, even though I was around crypto, I hadn't thought about how crypto could be used in preservation, and not only in preservation, but also in provenance. And I think it plays obviously it just works perfectly when it comes to provenance. And so anyway, immediately after hearing about CryptoPunks, it immediately clicked for me. So I claimed some punks, and was anonymous at the time, kind of hung around, learned. But I was also sort of, if not involved fully in traditional finance, I still kind of had that in my back pocket, and I didn't want to be public about talking about crypto because it was kind of well, not kind of, it was really frowned upon at the time. Even kind of still is, I guess, but it's starting to come around more so in traditional finance world, and there's definitely a lot of Wall Street people who are getting involved in trading now. especially with the volumes that are going on. But around in early 2020-ish, decided to just come out and start tweeting under my own name, join the Larva Labs Discord. But so anyway, sidetracked a little bit there, sorry, but I knew Snowfro. I knew how nice and such a good guy he is. And like I said, he's the founder of Artblocks. And so he very genuinely has an idea of the platform and what he wanted it to be from the get-go, and his vision for the platform. I think he's stuck to it and is sticking to it. He's always kind of envisioned Artblocks as being a way for people to have affordable access to art on demand, essentially generative art on demand. But there were things definitely about it that I just found very interesting. I found very cool from a collector's perspective. I really liked the way, and it kind of took from like the CryptoPunk concept of having rarities in these things. Like when you break down Chromie Squiggles and you see all the different rarity types and stuff like that, it was really, really cool. Excuse me, really interesting. And so borrowing that, there's some things that Artblocks does that we don't quite do yet, like such as, all of our stuff to date has been artist curated. And so back before Artblocks, generative art in general was all artist curated. So there would be, it was kind of like sad in a way because there'd be tons of amazing work, but then the artist would curate the pieces that they like the best from all the outputs, and then they would decide, okay, this one is going to be available to the public, right? But so the thing that really changed about Artblocks was that you could push a button, and it uses part of what's going on in the transaction and randomness to actually decide on the attributes of the artwork. And that's something that we are working towards. So Gene Kogan, who I was talking about earlier, the other co-founder, he has been working on a project for several years now called Abraham. You can find it abraham.ai. If you go to abraham.ai/creations, actually, you can see a lot of the stuff that community actually is creating these things. So you can go on there. If you have a token, you're able, it's a text, so you can input text, and then Abraham, the autonomous artist, will actually output a piece of art for you. And so what we're moving towards is integrating what's going on with Abraham. We're integrating that back end, so we'll have 3 separate categories. Essentially, this is the plan. Right now, we're starting with the artist curated stuff, and then we'll move towards, after integrating the Abraham backend, we'll move towards really all kinds of experimentation. So there's so much going on and so much quick advancement when it comes to AI art that we want to be super flexible and really represent everything that's going on in AI art. So if it comes to creating, like having a trained model, and then the artist has defined the type of pieces that can be created, we figured out a way to do this same thing that Artblocks is doing. So where it'll be basically just like a plug and play where the artist, the mentor would push a button, and then pieces would be created on the fly. And the artist and the collector, everybody would see it at the same time after it gets generated. Take a few minutes to generate, but after it gets generated. So we're super excited about that. And then we're also excited about doing some other stuff kind of similar to like Eponym, where and what Abraham AI is doing, where the user can input some text, and they can type what they want to see, and maybe in a particular style that they want to see it, and then if they like the output, they could decide to mint it. So that would be like community curated. So it's really kind of broken down into like 3 categories. You have artist curated, AI curated, and then community curated. And that those latter 2 categories would fall into play after we have instituted the Abraham backend.
Love
So
that you brought up Eponym, by the way.
yeah,
That was such a playful mint. I love the mints that collaborate with the community. So that's really cool to hear from the, development creator standpoint, how a curated might be different than a generated, like a fully AI generated and minted, and as opposed to like a generated and you like get to decide if you'd like to mint that or not. Those are cool, like three distinctions right there. Do you think you guys would ever take that approach that Eponym has with a community curated as well?
oh yeah, for sure. So that's like that's where we see the future going for us. Like I think we'll still probably have artist curated drops, but like three of those particular types of drops are definitely like they're being worked on right now. I mean, Abraham is already functioning. It's just a matter of we just have to tweak some things to like integrate it, with what we're doing. And we also have been working for a long time with the artists that we're working with. We have some just like amazingly cool stuff coming out, and really trying to showcase. I think for a lot of people, at least I mean, I've heard a lot of people been saying that they feel like a lot of AI art looks the same, and so one like big focus of ours right like now is showcasing how different these collections can be. A lot of it has to do with the data that's been used for training, and also like the different like technology behind the models. Gene is much more of an expert when it comes to that kind of stuff, but like we have some really cool stuff coming up too from people who've actually created their own models, their own background technology. Where I don't want to give away too much, but it's just like basically diving into like other worlds and just going on and on. It's almost like a Middlebrat set, but it's just like it's AI that's constantly iterating and creating these like other worlds. It's fascinating stuff. And then you have and when it comes to all that new stuff that's being worked on, I mean, I think we really like to highlight the creators, but some of them aren't necessarily into NFTs or even like selling their art. So we've gotten in touch with them and given them the option to create collections. But if they don't want to, we've gotten go ahead from them. They have pretty close knit communities, and some of the people within those communities are kind of more like on the commercial or artistic side, and so they've given like the okay to let them utilize that technology and kind of tweak it in their own way, add customized music to it, and yeah, I mean, a lot of really cool, interesting, very diverse stuff, and just showing all the different possibilities that you can really do with AA art. It's not just limited to the off the shelf GAN stuff that I think a lot of people are initially familiar with.
Yeah, I've got to say the art is quite striking. I mean, when you see generative art, at least maybe this is like my eye is not as eloquent and trained as yours, Justin. But you're right. When I see generated art, most of the time I'm thinking to myself, you know what? A lot of these look the same. But when I look at Braindrop's collections, and not to even make a statement on how different your collections are from each other. Obviously, you have an artist for each collection. Um, the pieces in and of themselves that have been curated are insanely uh, different and make me feel, I don't know, all sorts of ways. Like I'm looking at Claire's collection now, which by the way, Claire was telling us before you joined, she had a massive day on hers, specifically yesterday, 100
Oh
pieces
yeah,
traded
yeah,
in volume. I mean, that's incredible.
yeah.
I really appreciate that you had the foresight to think about, uh, those how much of a difference it would make if the art contrasted that much within a generative collection. That's really cool. I'd love to hear from Claire's side, and maybe Claire, Jean, Devi. This could be, this could sort of be like a collaboration here. When it comes to working with a platform that is willing to host your art and work with you and collaborate, what are some of the um, elements that you're looking for in terms of a collaboration, and what made Braindrops and Justin, stick out to y'all in terms of that, as opposed to partnering with, let's just say, like an Artblocks, or partnering with, the next platform.
Well, just speaking briefly for me, personal attention to the projects, to the artists that they're inviting in, is really important to me. I feel like distance is kind of poison in Web3. Like, that's why celebrity projects fail. They come in and drop and they're distant, and no one cares. And so having a personal connection, personal passion about it, and being active and involved in a one-on-one sort of way is really important to me for emerging platforms. Then Justin, his reputation precedes him. He's a very well-known person in the community, so I was immediately honored that he asked, and was obviously super passionate about AI art. Kind of discovered this world after being deeply into generative, and the passion was familiar to me because I have that. And so that was exciting, and a mark of someone that would do what it took to push the medium forward and sort of get it into the collective consciousness more, which I think that he and the Braindrops team have done. So it's been the best experience I've had minting with the new platform. It's been wonderful. So very thankful.
Yeah, I think plus one to a lot of what Claire said, that I think the sort of in interacting with Justin and the team in general, it's clear that there is excitement about each individual project as opposed to approaching it as, here are a portfolio of, I don't know, 100 different projects that are all going on at the same time, and then none of the projects kind of boil up to that amount of importance. So I think the sort of the one-on-one back and forth, and um, also adding sort of the NFT and crypto perspectives, right? That I'm excited about AI, I'm excited about the art, but I might not know quite as much about what collectors are interested in and how the crypto space in general works and so on. So I think just having those different perspectives come together in these personalized conversations, I found to be very valuable. And also, I think Justin kind of said this, but there aren't that many platforms out there for AI art, right? Like on Artblocks right now, you wouldn't be able to do a drop on AI generative art. That just doesn't exist as far as I know. I mean, I know for a fact that it doesn't exist on Artblocks. I don't know if there are other platforms that do this, but Braindrops is the only one that I'm aware of. And so I think that's exciting. And what Justin was describing about setting up the infrastructure where it can really be AI curated, where you just have the code or the model that's generating these pieces when someone is interested in minting it. I think that's an exciting direction that I'm excited about in terms of Braindrop's future explorations.
Great point there, DV. Asking for a friend, friend being me. What is the difference between generative art and AI generated art?
So the difference is in whether the generative algorithm that you're using is learning from data or not, right? So for most of the generative art that you come across, including a lot of my work, I do non-AI generative art as well. You as the artist think of what you want this algorithm to be, and you code that up, and there is randomness in that process, and there are attributes and features that are being driven by external variables and all of that, and you decide how to incorporate all of that. But the entire aesthetic of the piece is coming entirely from the artist. You're dictating all of that. Whereas when you're using AI in the generative process, part of the features, part of the aesthetics are coming from an algorithm that has learned from a whole bunch of data. And so that sort of opens up a whole new set of opportunities where some of the aspects of the aesthetics and the features that you see are coming directly from the artist, but others are coming from this AI model that has been trained on a lot of data. I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot of data, but it's often a lot of data. And so I think that's the difference. Did that make sense? Did that make sense?
That made a ton of sense. Follow-up question.
Mhm.
When it comes to training this AI to generate this art,
Mhm.
what are the, and maybe this might be specific to Braindrops or might be specific per collection, but what are the parameters that you guys set for the AI, and like what is it? What pieces are is it assessing? How many pieces? What like time period? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think this slightly varies quite a bit across projects and across artists. So Claire and Jean and others might have more to say here. But some of the basic choices that you would make in training the model would be what data do you want this model to be trained on? What algorithm do you want to use to train on it? And so GAN is one popular choice, but there are others. And then finally, I think one important aspect, and this is something that I was excited about in my project, was to take these generations and then render them in whatever style that I want. So not stopping at whatever the model produces, but then entirely re-rendering them in different styles and different color palettes and so on. I think are some other choices that you can make here.
Got it. Okay, cool. Um, and Gina, I'd love to hear from from your words what really spoke out to you about Justin and Braindrops as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, when so Justin reached out to me, and I had been thinking, I'd started working with NFTs myself, and one of the things that's been on my mind for a couple of years that NFTs really kind of pushed to the forefront is that myself and many of my peers were generating all of this AI generated content, and lots of people are enjoying it somehow. And so the fact that there's some, like, having something like a vehicle similar to art blocks for specifically AI generated artists felt like just a huge opportunity, something that a lot of people would respond to immediately, because our problems kind of dovetail those of NFTs in general. We don't have prior to this, we don't have easy ways of monetizing the work. It just kind of goes to platforms, and so like platforms that own the content. So I'd been and prior to Braintraps, as Justin mentioned, I've been working on this project called Abraham. So I've been very, very, excited about the potential for NFTs to play a role in some of these more abstract goals that I've had. Making an autonomous artist, and there's a bunch that I could get into. And so it felt to another thing is, in the process of working on Abraham, we started working on exactly this tooling that Justin made reference to, that we could actually provide. The first few drops have been basically pre-generated assets, but as Eponyms and others have started exploring the idea of this kind of interaction between the minters and the algorithms themselves, making kind of more customized or interactive kind of just-in-time generated AI content that is just super exciting to me, and I'm pretty bullish on it, as in terms of it generating, creating a whole new excuse me, a whole new industry of AI generated content for the internet. Like, I kind of have this idea that in the future, a lot of the assets, the sort of content that you come into that comes into the internet is going through pipelines quite like this. And so it felt natural to try to want to integrate this into Braindrops. We haven't started doing it yet, but that's one of our major goals for the year, is to create these, in addition to, not replacing, but in addition to having pre-generated um, works that are curated by the artists, to have something that complicates things a little bit, but might make for some interesting, fun scenarios. And yeah, I had not interacted with Justin before this, and so I've gotten a chance to know him over the last few months. And it's, for me, it's my background is a little bit orthogonal. I've been kind of in this AI art world, and so it's been a blessing for me to have someone who's really plugged into the heartbeat of the crypto world. There's a lot of things both cultural and logistical that I'm still feel myself learning. I have to admit, I've been watching crypto art for since the beginning. I've been got interested in Ethereum for just solely on the possibility of art applications, in 2017 and so on. And I completely missed NFTs. I was thinking more about, ERC20 tokens, and I was really into token engineering and all these kind of more complicated mechanisms that, maybe are just ahead of their time. And I didn't quite understand, now I do. Now I feel like I've had some aha moments that help me understand the value of NFTs. I think, for a lot of us had this, over the last year where we kind of finally understand why so many people are willing to engage with these. And so yeah, for me it's been and Braindrops, it's for me it's the most successful in terms of community engagement, as a social project, the most successful probably that I've ever participated in. And so the fact that that's happened in just these last 2 months, I think speaks volumes to Justin. He's really been able to. I think he's made made the biggest contribution to getting this kind of a community on board. And so yeah, that's kind of like my take. And I have a lot of sort of ideas about the future, but yeah, I think one step at a time. I hope we'll make Braindrops better and better over time.
I love that, and I also think a really big indicator of someone with good taste and also brings great value is just hearing what everyone around him has to say. And I couldn't agree more. I think the best thing about Braindrops is that I didn't find out about it from being shilled by a celebrity. To your point, Claire, a lot of celebrities in the space, even our favorite ones. I'm not going to make any call outs, though I can make a handful. Even our favorite ones will come in, shill a project, shill their fundraiser, shill whatever it is they're going to shill. And then they go into the Discord, they bop in, and then the second it sells out, they bop back out, never to be seen again. And I think, Justin, to your testament, and I'm sure hearing all of your artists, this is nothing new. All the artists you've collaborated with on Braindrops thus far, this is really awesome to hear. And it shouldn't come to no surprise that you're hearing it. You've been in the space, you've been killing it, and you've now brought together an awesome group of creatives on a platform that, in my opinion, is incredibly innovative. And I love that, again, I heard about what you're doing once the dust settled on the first series of drops, unfortunately, but I will be trying to get the next one. And I think that's just a testament to the success of your artists and your platform. And yeah, I'm really excited for this next drop. DV, if you can give us any alpha on your drop, what inspired you? Can you talk a little bit more about this collection coming up tomorrow?
Yeah, happy to do that. So the project is called Confluence, and it is a mix of AI, human analog art, and human digital art. And so what I mean by this is that the model has been trained on pictures of my physical sketchbooks, an analog sketchbook that has a bunch of sketches and doodles and Zentangles and all sorts of random things that I just felt like doing in the moment in the last few years. And then that's what the model has been trained on. And then I take generations from these models and then re-render them in a way that the shapes kind of still look organic and the kinds of shapes that you see in a lot of AI generated art. But the textures are much more crisp because of the way I render them. And I render these in a variety of different palettes that have taken inspiration from various different sources. And so that's what the collection is. And I have a little write-up that describes the idea and shows examples of some pieces that have been generated from the system. And so I think that's linked in the thread that has been pinned to this conversation. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, you're welcome to check that out.
Yeah, do read the write-up because it's also interesting. What Davey's done is she also had the images run through another AI system that actually looked to see tried to see what so like when you look up at a cloud and we have a tendency to see like faces or a train or something like that, right? Like pareidolia. There's actually like another element to this collection where it's like AI pareidolia. So she ran the images through another AI system, and then there's 52 different categories of subjects that that this other AI has actually like is seeing within the images. So it's really interesting. There's 5 different categories of traits, and it should be really fascinating from a I kind of come from like a collector's first background, and so it's really fun. I think from a collector's point of view to see how these 5 different these 5 different traits will all kind of come together in the end. And obviously, she doesn't talk about the rarities yet, but she'll release all the rarity information after drop, and that'll be fun to see people's reactions to if they got a certain rare trait that the AI pareidolia only saw this particular subject, a couple times or one time, or this particular color palette isn't as common. There's a lot of fun elements to this. They should definitely read the write up.
All right, cool. Thank you for that. We will start. Wow, it's almost already 3. Time flies when you're in the metaverse, and time's also completely irrelevant, I guess, when you're in the metaverse. As Devi knows, it's almost 1 a.m. there in India. So thank you for staying tuned and chatting with us. Poop, what are your thoughts so far?
Love the conversation. Love hearing all about the project, guys. One question I did have for Justin, if you didn't mind, kind of just expanding a little bit on your process and in hosting some of these artists and kind of what you look for and asking them to come on board and share their work for Braindrops. Is there kind of a checklist you look for when finding these artists, or is it more recommendation, or is it just all you kind of scouting out the metaverse for to see who you want to bring on board?
It's definitely not just on me. It's really Gene and I are kind of like a team in this situation. We're scouting, looking within the community of people that Gene is already connected with, trying to look for a variety of aesthetics, different kinds of methods that artists create work, making sure that they can scale. That's obviously an important part too. Everybody has a different they have different mythologies, different methods when it comes to creating their art. So not necessarily easy for some of these people to create a collection of 500 to 1,000 pieces, but trying to help them if they can't scale. We have ways that we can help provide computing power, and we're really trying to represent. So like we want to represent the full spectrum. So I kind of touched on it earlier. It's really kind of like a 3-prong. When it comes to the artists, it's that you have like the super technical, you have like this amazing aesthetics, and then you have the are they well known? Do they have a big following, right? And like obviously in a perfect world setting, like I guess you would have all 3 of those things at the highest level possible. But also, I think where AI art is now, there's really only a couple people probably that are super standouts when it comes to being very, very well known. Obviously, those things are changing very quickly, but still having like the ability for the artists and the collectors to grow together is a really kind of a fun thing about how new all of this is. So it also allows us to keep that price point. But yeah, when it comes down to the first and foremost, aesthetics are really number one. We're wanting to show, like I said earlier, the variety of art that can come out of AI collaboration. Is it something that like I would want to hang on the wall? Is it like a art that I like the way it looks? and then I kind of lean on Gene when it comes to the tech side, and then we have conversation with the artist, and we talk about their process and how they, how their workflow looks. And so we make sure that we have some kind of balance there. And then when it comes to the third category, we aren't really like so concerned about how well known people are, because I really feel like the way that we see it, and I mean, and we're gonna have, we'll have a mix of people that are already well known, already well established, but then there's also like super creative people that are doing amazing stuff. They've just found out they maybe are coming from a tech background, and they have the ability to do some really cool stuff, and now they see a way that they can monetize their skills. And so and maybe they've always been super creative, and like this, they just didn't know that there was a way to sell it. So we're introducing them to the NFT world, and we're introducing them, like Davey was kind of talking about, how collectors think, and how they can put a collection together that'll have mass appeal, and really bring them an audience, because it doesn't really take all that many collectors, to get, once you have a decent following, a few hundred, 1,000, maybe a couple thousand, it can really change the trajectory of things. If you're not really liking what you're working on, and you have a lot of technical skills, but you really just have like this creative drive, and you would rather be creating art, now is a time where you can throw yourself into that and actually have the potential to do it. So I think being a conduit for that is important to us. So first and foremost is going to be can they make something really cool? Can we figure out how to put a collection together that has a cohesion to it, and also has like some cool rarities, some cool kind of collectible vibes to it. And then make sure that their methods are in line, and that they're actually using AI in the development of the art.
That was great, super helpful. Thank you for that explanation, because
Absolutely.
I think with all these kind of little different curated collections across the NFT world, it can be a little tedious finding kind of the unique things to make each one stand out on their own. And I think, for lack of a better term, in regards to Braindrops specifically, I think vibes and energy is a really good way to put it, because when you look at the art, it kind of does elicit some of those positive energy vibes and unique art concepts that I think may be lacking in some of the other places that we look, for better or worse. So I just wanted to commend you guys on going that route.
Well, thank you, appreciate that. And also, just I do think that it's cool. Like, one of the cool things about having Braindrops as like this overall umbrella is it's an additional. So you have the collections, which they themselves have this network effect, where if you have several hundred people who have a piece from this collection, they're all talking about it to their friends. They're all excited about this new artist and this particular collection. We've seen that with Braindrops, with Art Blocks, and then you see that not only, and then it goes up the ladder to the general Art Blocks umbrella. You saw where there was a lot of art coming out, and was automatically being given value just because of the brand value of Art Blocks. And so I see us striving for a similar situation. I think having all of the pieces fall under right now. So like if you go on to OpenSea, everything's falling under the Braindrops umbrella, and that's really purposeful, because as new people come in and they come across a new collection that's dropping, we want them to go into OpenSea, or as more secondaries open up in the future, other ones as well. But right now, OpenSea is obviously like the main one. So when they go on OpenSea, we want them to be able to also rediscover the older projects. So it's definitely like by design thing. It's something that it's not like been like wasn't something that like I invented. These are all things that I've taken as a collector in inspiration from the way Art Blocks has been. I think one difference a little bit between other than just like some technical differences would be just in kind of feeling like how much art we're going to put out. I think definitely we're starting out slow, obviously, and we want to be thoughtful. But I also think at the same time, there's not, as I think with Art Blocks too, there was a ton of people. There were a ton of people who go, oh, you can, I can make a living with creating art with these algorithms, and so a lot more people got into the field. So I also think that a lot of more people are going to start getting into the AI art field and creating AI art. And so there'll be a lot more people to choose from, I think. Right now, it's not as many, and like I've found it to be. I mean, we're not like overloaded. You know what I mean? Like we have like 6 or 7 projects that are in the works right now, and we're being choosy with stuff, but we're not having to be too choosy because it's still such a new art form. And so I think things will continue to grow, but also at the same time, like I don't see us like putting out tons and tons of collections anytime soon. So that's kind of a little bit like maybe more unique. Maybe we like have like a smaller kind of gallery niche vibe there. Oh, and also one thing too that I just wanted to touch on, not it's sort of related to the metaverse kind of stuff too, and VR, because that's been an interest that I've been interested in for a long time. Is that, and someone had kind of mentioned, I think when Gene was talking about earlier, the way media is evolving and how big of a role AI already is, but will definitely play in future media. I think long form media, like I kind of use the analogy of like going on Netflix and you get they see what you like and you get recommended a show based on like stuff that they have in their catalog. I think in the future, within like 5 to 10 years, I think we wouldn't probably be out of the realm of possibility to see a lot of like custom media being created on the fly to particular people's taste. And I'm super excited about that. I'm also super excited about that inside of a VR environment, because one thing as a VR advocate for so long that I was always kind of concerned about has been the bandwidth issue. So trying to, even with like super high speed internet, there's so much information in the real world that being able to pass through the level of detail to have something look like super realistic is very difficult. However, using AI to fill in the gaps of this information is on the client side is super interesting to me. So like you aren't having to pass that information to fill in these details over over this kind of constrained internet limit, but you can actually fill in those details on the client side so that you have these ultra realistic virtual reality experiences that aren't heavily reliant on internet infrastructure.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing all that. I think it's really important information for everyone to know, because again, everyone sees the art, but maybe not necessarily the process behind it or the thoughts behind it. So, really appreciate you sharing all that with us. Old Mitch, Jacob, myself, we're coming up a little past the top of the hour here. So we also wanted to see if anyone in the audience had any questions, wanted to come up and ask any of the artists or Justin any questions, get some feedback. And otherwise, so if you have anything you wanted to come up and ask, go ahead and hit the request button. We'll get you up here as soon as we can. I guess one question I had here for Gene or Claire, what are some of the big benefits you guys see coming from your own individual art collections and then coming over into something like Braindrops, where it's more of a collective and under kind of a different umbrella? than you just being an individual artist. Is there some benefits or some drawbacks to go along with that process of it?
I can speak to it briefly. Yeah.
Sure.
So on the one side, like I'm coming from a one of one, sort of background, very focused on scarcity. And so it was scary to sort of make the jump into a larger collection. But I'm so glad I did, because the benefits, like personally to the artist, royalties are an absolute game changer and free up so much mental processing power to create when you're not worried about basic logistics of living as much. And then on top of that, having a collection um, of art that you resonate with and that's a part of you that's that broad invites a community in, right? So, like, when you share your art on Twitter, for example, the people that vibe with it will follow you and interact with you, and that's kind of like your tribe, right? Like that's your friend group, and it's curated on what you are inside. So super handy if you're looking to connect with people emotionally or otherwise. And so that's cool. But then when it's a collection that people can like own and be a part of and be emotionally invested in and be connected to like that, that's a self-selecting tribe of people that really resonate with what you're putting out, that really get it, really feel it, believe in the vision. And so just access to a network of friends like that, of other creatives and other believers in the space that are attuned to you in that way. Being able to do a collection like this and broaden that group has been so fulfilling and so amazing. I'm not sure if that was exactly your question, but that was my takeaway. So
I guess I would add to that, like, for me, the prospect of doing this with my friends is a big part of it. So being able to like develop and help facilitate some of these same tools for my peers and my friends, people who are just looking for this kind of a lifeline, for their own work. And in a sense, like the platform exists like somewhere between this like everybody on their own and everybody together. I feel like we're kind of a constellation of aligned stars. I don't know if that's a little cheesy maybe, but something along those lines. So that's a big part of the appeal, because we all, I'm a big believer in kind of this isn't zero sum. I'd like to see. I don't see myself in competition. Just purely in competition with other AI artists. I think we all kind of like create this interest and need in AI generated content together. And so there's a lot of there's a lot there to cooperate and to try to kind of give each other boosts, like some kind of a um, something to a stage and a set of tools and things like that. I'd say that's kind of the appeal of joining some kind of a larger community effort.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's not necessarily expanding and broadening your reach as an artist, but also just kind of doing something cool with your friends and people in the community. I think that is really important for all of us to kind of understand and appreciate here as well. Because much like us degens minting everything under the sun, it's always more fun when you're doing things with your friends, and so I think that resonates a lot with everyone here. So last call, I guess, for anyone with questions in the audience, or questions or comments, concerns, feedback, suggestions. If you want to come up and speak with any of us up here. Um, Other than that, Justin, did you have anything else that you felt the need to add? Justin, or any of the artists, or anyone else involved? Anything else you wanted to kind of add to this conversation before we maybe take questions or end it?
Oh, I think if I started getting talking, it could get too philosophical, and it would just go on and on. To tell you the truth, I mean, I can go on and on about this kind of stuff, but Yeah, I mean, if we have a time crunch, I'm curious. Are you gonna put this up as? Are we recording this so we can put it up as a podcast?
It is being recorded through OBS, like a screen share, and we can work out in DMs however we want to to get the content over to you guys. But it is being recorded in some form or fashion. Yes.
Oh, okay, that would be great. Yeah, I think it would be good to be able to put out so that more people can hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I had a question for Justin, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go
of
ahead.
course.
So you were talking about basically AI assisted art making, I guess, in a sense.
Yes.
So basically, is there someone, or have you heard of any projects that's doing this in sort of in a financial sense for artists who find the financial side extremely difficult?
Can you? I don't know if I completely. Can you rephrase it?
Is I mean, in a sense, I feel like the same algorithms can be used on financial statements to be able to sort of prove AI generative assistance with your finances, in a sense. And I feel like it's the same algorithms.
I don't know if they're the same algorithms. I mean, G knows a lot more about the technology behind AI than I
Sure.
do. And Davey too. They would probably be able to answer that a lot better than me.
Okay.
Tell you the truth. But I mean, I will say I mean, I guess, are there a lot of people? I mean, there's people that have been using AI to create art for a long time. Like I said, with Gene, 2014, 2015 ish. That's kind of the very beginning of messing around with generative adversarial networks and saying, oh, we could actually make some art with this. This was pretty cool and interesting. And then I think it was Gene and one other academic, and Gene obviously went the artistic way, but he didn't get into into NFTs until a couple years later. So there's some other people like Robbie Barat that obviously got into NFTs and AI around the same time, and he was on Super Rare. A lot of early Super Rare pieces were actually AI collaborative pieces. So it's not necessarily super new. I think it's just hasn't been a big outlet, and wasn't also, I don't think, readily apparent, especially until there was much more demand for digital art. I think it was readily apparent that there was an appetite for these larger collections, and it just kind of now it seems like the perfect storm where it doesn't make sense to have. It doesn't make sense for 100 people to all own. It's like if an artist put out a print, like a traditional artist put out a print of something a painting that they had done, right, and then they sold 100 or 1,000 editions of this particular print. The cool thing about generative art, in any sense, and AI generative really just AI art falls under the generative umbrella, but also at the same time, AI is such a. I mean, there's so many possibilities with AI art that it's hard to put it under just a generative umbrella, because there's just so many different things that can be done with it, and we're really just scratching the surface. I mean, it's super exciting to see the new kind of I guess the way you put it with algorithms. There are definitely people who use the same kind of algorithms, but there's also people who are creating these new algorithms and these new models, and so the outputs are going to be super interesting and more unique looking, and I think that'll add to the excitement and get people talking more. Obviously, NFT has been I think, I don't know what dictionary, maybe it was Collins Dictionary, they called it the word of the year. And then you have AI is obviously something that people have been talking about, in recent years. I mean, it gets lots and lots of media exposure. So really, like AI plus NFT is, I mean, I just think it's going to be something that's going to it's going to burst through into the mainstream. Right now, we're just kind of like, I mean, in this little NFT world that we live in, I think it feels like it's pretty big, but in the general sense, it's, we haven't burst through yet into mainstream consciousness. So once that does happen, I think it'll be super interesting to see the way people embrace, not just like short form art, like short loops or even still frames, but also like longer form media. And you'll start to see like people who are super creative but don't necessarily have like the technical skills. I think that's one of the things that I'm like most excited about is really creative people who don't that have lots of really cool ideas, but they don't necessarily have the ability to put them down on paper or put them into or like direct a full blown movie, right? But with using AI tools, as they become more intuitive, they can actually have a vision for like a short movie, or I mean even a long movie theoretically, and with the assistance of intuitive AI tools, they can create these amazing works of art that would hopefully resonate with other people. And I don't think that, I mean, obviously I love the fact that humans are um, involved in collaborating in this, but I also feel that there's also something to be said for the human collaboration just as the curator. So it's like, um, because personally, the way that I feel about art is that it's like basically preserving the feeling of a particular time and space. So like how did it feel to be around in this particular time and space? And I think that digital art is just it's culturally, and where we are as like a global culture. I mean, it's just a very, very strong reflection, and I've talked about it in other times, and I don't want to go too heavy into it, but like with meme culture and the way that religious institutions used art to influence culture throughout history, and you have now where meme culture really has a large impact on society. There's a lot of interesting parallels. I think there's just so many fascinating things about digital art in general, but definitely to me the kind of unlimited possibilities of that AI can enable artists to do so much more. I think that's just like what's super exciting to me. Hope that kind of answered your question. If you're still there.
Oh, sorry.
I think you're.
But,
Go ahead.
I mean, I guess I was talking. I guess like I see the way that I guess that perhaps a game can be put together with the use of artists to kind of figure out like spectrum type behaviors pretty easily, and then also be able to kind of help implement fixes for those types of spectrum types behaviors. Because I'm dyslexic and was in like special needs class at school, and they had me spelling stuff 50 times over and over and over again, and I still don't know how to spell that word today, and I'm 40 years old. And I know there's other hacks around it with the use of AI and art, and I was trying to figure out if anyone's kind of looking down those corridors, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope so. I have a son who's on the spectrum. He's only 5. I feel like uh, I have so many like There's so many things about AI that I look forward to having impact on human society, especially in terms of like thinking about like my son's future and like future relationships, and just anybody who doesn't always like necessarily fit into quote unquote like what's going on like in a class. They may feel like an outsider or whatever, but like there are applications I know already that especially in Japan, there's people forming long-term relationships with AI. And I also think that, as people are scared, there's fears of AI being like an existential threat to humanity. I actually feel like, barring any kind of like catastrophe, say that we just continue to evolve as a species, on and on, we would eventually evolve into something completely unrecognizable at some point anyway. And so really, as we come closer to a technological singularity where it's basically just technology is advancing at such a rapid pace that there's just no turning back, I actually think that AI can be used to preserve, really could preserve where we are as a species right now. But I mean, you could also experience, any time period theoretically. And so I find that to be like a really, and maybe I'm just like a hopeless optimist, but I really do. I find that to be like a really intriguing possibility. I think there's so many different uses. I know that there's lots and lots of research going on. I actually feel like Davey's way more capable of talking about what's going on in AI research than me, because she's super plugged into that. She's lead research at Facebook, in AI. So I would almost rather just like turn it over to her to maybe answer your question better than I could.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I think there's a lot to say about this. But in addition to what Justin was saying, I think there's also specific projects on things like if you're training chatbots, how can you train them to be more empathetic, and sort of so thinking about these emotional responses, and thinking about the fact that there is a human user that's interacting with these systems, and what does it mean for these systems to be a useful empathetic presence in a human's life. I think there's quite a bit of work there. And in general, there's a lot of conversation around trying to think about how to align these systems to human values. And I mean, that leads to all sorts of philosophical questions about how do we even define human values. I don't think we as a society agree on that quite yet. So, yeah, to Justin's point, I think this can get philosophical pretty quickly, but it is definitely on the minds of a lot of AI researchers right now.
Beautiful. Thank you all for taking the time to discuss some of that. Great question there. Looks like we have the Goo God up here. Welcome. Did you have a question for the panel up here?
Hey guys, I think you guys know I'm a huge fan and I'm a Genesis holder. And I just wanted to tell you something. It's funny because I just tapped into this conversation and basically everything you guys have just been talking about with the emotional response and that kind of stuff. I basically got a chance to show my family like what we've been into over the holidays, and basically the brain drop that I showed them was what got literally everyone from 13 years old to 86 speechless. And that's when I knew, other than that it's a fine art thing, that I always kind of knew that, but it's just so wild, beyond belief, when you can get that kind of response out of people. I just want to say really thank you, because it's awesome.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. Yeah, and I love it. I hope, and something that I feel really strongly about it, is obviously the space has become really popular super fast, and so there's gonna attract people who or they want to make money. It's a natural thing, right? But I would just love to see the projects that are financially, killing it. I think it would be great if they would take the time to, put out. And I don't want it to come across as like insulting, but what I would love to see is like more and more projects that are putting out art that is stuff that I feel like even if people were left with a piece of art that or a JPEG that they bought that they would want to hang it up on the wall, even if it wasn't worth anything in the secondary market. I think a lot of people, I've been around a long time in this space, and so I'll just say that, like, for me, the people that I've seen who have been the most successful when it comes to being like collecting and being able to have longevity in collecting, which obviously means that your portfolio goes up. Those people all have the ability to not necessarily follow the crowd, but they think for themselves, and they decide what they like personally and what resonates with them. And so it's very hard. It's become kind of a cliche now, but it really, there's a reason for it. And if you buy things that you like, you really can't lose. Even if the secondary market goes to nothing, if you have a piece of art that resonates with you, that you like, that you can put up on your wall, that is something that you can cherish for years to come, and then you've won already. And then hopefully, personally for me, obviously, I see the future going towards AI art, and I've always kind of tried to be, when it comes to tech and art, I've gotten lucky. I say I've gotten lucky. I don't know how many times you have to get lucky before that you can admit that there's some level of skill. But, I've been involved, in just about everything that's been successful. So, I try to be involved in the bleeding edge stuff, and nobody was doing the AI art platform. And so I just said, I'm going to do it. So I put together the team, and now we have 3 badass founders and a bunch of badass artists and an awesome family, and we're doing it, So, can't say much more than that.
Love to hear it. It's been great to, follow along through your journey and learn more about it today in the spaces. We're coming up on an hour and a half. It looks like we got Pindar up here. Would love to see what he has to say, and then maybe trying to wrap it up after this. Just
Oh, thanks, man. I'll just be quick and say hi. Hey, Justin, Claire, Gene, and now Debbie. Excited about the next drop. I've been listening the whole time. I was just only now able to jump on, and everyone said everything so eloquently. I don't know if there's anything else I could add, so I'll just leave it at that. But thanks, everyone, for showing up to this.
Thanks for tuning in, brother.
Yeah, Gene, looks like you got your hand raised. Is something you want to
add? No, that was just like waving hi to Pindar.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Get your emojis right, Jacob. All right. I think on that note, if it's okay with everyone, if there's not much more to add, it's probably a good jumping off point. All the artists up here, I just wanted to give a huge shout out. In addition to Justin, obviously, but your works of art through Braindrops and otherwise are such an inspiration, and you all are doing fascinating work. So just keep up the great stuff. Looking forward to seeing what else comes our way from Braindrops and each of you as individual artists as well. So keep up the great work. Outside of that, can't thank you all enough for taking the time to be up here, speak with us, kind of educate the community a little bit, and let us know what Braindrops is all about. We are Metaverse HQ. If you are in the audience today and want to know more about our community, all of our links are in the bio here. And if you have any questions or want to know more about Braindrops as well, you can go to their website, braindrops.cloud, to find more information on the artists and some of their collections. Outside of that, again, thank you all for tuning in today. It was a pleasure talking to everyone, and we'll catch you on the other side here. GG's.
GG's. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.